How we doing today, guys? This is T Square Testimonies. I just want to say thank you for all the support y'all been showing the channel. And we're just here with another couple of great guests. I'm going to give y'all some context of how I know these great people. Me and my wife started going to a marriage enrichment group, and they helped us. And what they do is they talk with other groups, and we share wisdom upon each other and learn together and grow together. We got to meet Jay and Kim, and me and my wife want to say thank you because y'all have a lot of wisdom that y'all gave me and my wife that we really took and applied it. So we're thankful for that. Thank you for opening your home to us. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and thank you for feeding us as well. That's awesome.
Anytime.
But tell us a little bit about you and who you are.
You want to go first?
Sure. I'm Kim Martinez, and this is Jay Martinez. We've been married for 31 years, and we have 6 kids, 2 wonderful in-law children, and 2 granddaughters. Yeah, I am a stay-at-home mom. I homeschool. I've homeschooled for this will be my 21st year. Run a homeschool co-op, and yeah, that pretty much sums up me. And do you want to tell about you?
Yeah, I work at Living Spaces. Been there 21 years too. Yeah, 21 years. We're originally from California. Stayed in Colorado for a few years, then went back to California. Then moved to Arizona, and then got here, Texas.
What part of California?
Southern California. I was born and raised in San Diego. You're northern?
Yeah.
But we met in San Diego.
So walk us through your childhood and how y'all grew up.
Well, my childhood was a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was an alcoholic. We had a big family Bible, but we didn't have Christ. Yeah. I would have said growing up, "Oh, I'm a Christian." I also would have said I'm a Democrat, and I was like, whatever my parents like, these were how they identified. Yeah. It wasn't until like in high school I went to youth group with friends, but it was when after we were first married that I was really seeking to know God. Just I felt like this big hole and was wanting to know God. And then started my personal search. Was reading a book about how all ways to God are fine. They all get to the same place. And my sister had started going to a church, and she took me with her to her life group. And a very nice gentleman who ran that life group very sternly told me that was not correct. All the things I was reading was like that Christ is the only way. And I was so angry. I mean, you remember I was so angry, and I was like red in my ears. I was so mad. But that moment was pivotal for me. It was like somewhere in my spirit, I just knew that he was speaking the truth, even though it wasn't. I just thought it was so close-minded. Yeah. And, like it sounded so nice in this book that, any way that people are seeking God is fine. But that really started me on my journey towards seeking Christ. And I started watching televangelists on TV, church on TV. Mm-hmm. And I got down in our living room on my knees one night and just gave my life to Christ.
How old were you at this time?
24, maybe 23, 24. Yeah. Like I said, I went to some youth group with friends, and I would I probably still would have said to somebody, "Oh, I'm a Christian," but just tagline Christian. Well, I didn't know what that meant. Like, I believe in God and I believe Jesus is a person, but not that I had any understanding of what that meant or any relationship. And like I said, my upbringing, with my dad being an alcoholic, We had gone to church occasionally, like we would, but it always, it was just a couple of visits to this church and a couple of visits to that church, and nothing ever stuck.
Would you say that about the bad taste because you saw that he wasn't doing the walk, or did that not?
I don't think I even correlated it, to be honest, because I had no idea other than it was just church. You know, I had no idea that there was any relationship involved or that he was supposed to be a certain way or, um, yeah, I just had no idea. So, by the time that I was, um, through my, um, young, teenage years and going into my young adult years, I was starting to feel more and more that like there's something missing, and experienced a lot of depression and was trying to figure out what's going on, that what is it that I need that I don't have. And so, um, I think the little bits of, um, youth group and introduction to the Lord that I did have, I think that seed was planted, that that's the thing. And so I think that's what started me on that trajectory, looking for it.
What about you, Jim?
I grew up in San Diego. Mom and dad, kind of were essentially, came over migrant, and we lived on a ranch. We had it pretty good in the sense that we worked for my dad worked for someone who was a doctor, and he took care of his ranch. So um, it was nice. I mean, uh, I always felt like we had a lot, even though maybe we didn't. Yeah. But um, had a big family. Grew up Catholic. Probably my mom was a spiritual leader of the house, and I say that in the sense that she always, I could hear her praying. Everything was about God. But I don't know if I ever like sat down and read the Bible with her in the sense where she taught me. Other than that, we were Catholic. Did go to some catechisms. I kind of remember going through catechism. Went to youth groups probably through 12th grade. I mean 12. And then kind of off and on, but probably just culturally considered myself Catholic. In high school, I used to play all the sports, and there was a local church that had a open gym, and it was probably one of the biggest churches that sent kids to Hume Lake, which in California it's just a gigantic camp. I don't know, is it Pine Cove out here? Is that Arizona? Yeah. So, but like largest now looking, as we kind of know a little bit more, Hume Lake is just a big place where all the big young youth pastors go, and it's a fantastic place. But I was asked to go on that. I had never been, other than play basketball in a Christian church, never really attended um, uh, anything but a Catholic church. Went on that trip, and they're about a week long. It was fantastic, and really just the first time I heard the scriptures, totally different. You know what I mean? And relationship, Christ, and they do those. Does anybody want to give their life? And I stood up, and it was super cool and super emotional. I remember, but you're there with all your friends, that you go to high school with. I remember it being kind of a big deal, but you come back, you know what I mean? There's not really a foundation. I wasn't going there. But I think it was for sure when I gave my life to Christ. I heard the gospel in a whole different way. But then, from there, kind of, you just go on with your regular, and, we started dating, and we ended up moving to Denver. And we were living together before, we got married, and she kind of tells that story where that's at. I would kind of, traditionally on my own go to mass on Easter, and evening, Christmas Eve mass, and just kind of do all those things. And as she was searching, I'd say, like, man, you really need to find a church. I kind of felt like I have this, you know what I mean, but I really couldn't guide her. I didn't really know.
I went to the Catholic church, and I was totally lost. I told them, I said, I felt like there was you were supposed to know the fight song, stand up, sit down, say the right words. And I felt completely like, I don't know the right I don't know all these things. Like I didn't grow up in this. I don't know. And so I probably only went one time, and I was
Yeah,
like, I don't
yeah.
want to go there. And so then he used to come and he'd say, oh, you should find a church. Yeah, you should go and find it. He was kind of like not patronizing, but he was like, I'm good. I have the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I kind of felt like, I didn't know anything about my role, my responsibility. I knew enough where I would say, I believe in God and I'm a Catholic and I go, particularly on the big days, every once in a while, more Sundays than often, but I would go, Easter, New Year's Eve. And really there was other, um, you know, Catholic times that you would go, but I really didn't know the responsibility of really leading other than trying to encourage her, like, yeah, I think you should find something. That story she tells when her sister took her to that, I was like, oh yeah, that would be great. And I remember when she came home, I can always tell when Kim's really mad, her ears get red.
Oh,
And they're like
wow.
bright red.
It was like smoke coming out of my ears. I was so mad. I was so mad with that guy.
Well,
We're good friends now. I mean,
yeah,
over the years, we became really good friends with that
yeah.
couple.
But it was a pivotal point. It was a pivotal point for both of us. You know what I mean? It did sound like truth. We ended up going to that church.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in a basement. And man, it's probably from there is probably when our walk started.
Yeah.
Well, my question, since we're on the topic, is did you go to Catholic because your family was
Yeah,
Catholic?
for
Okay.
sure.
So here, I'll ask you this since you were on it. What did you first think when you walked in and you saw that they were doing those things in the church? Like, did you question it, or did you find the?
I just felt like if you didn't grow up in it, like, how do you know?
Mm.
When because I was at that point, I was seeking. I wanted to find out more. Um, I think it was. It just felt. It just felt weird. It felt like a lot of. It felt like a lot of tradition, and I don't know. I think mostly that. I think I was mostly just uncomfortable, and really didn't. I didn't even really get a chance. Um, and the other thing was, he tried to convince Jay he was Hawaiian instead of Mexican. Um, he got over it. They ended up being best friends before my dad died.
Yeah.
But he equated Catholic with not white. And so there was probably a little bit in my head where it was like, I can't go to a Catholic, like, I can't go to a Catholic church. Like, even though at that point, my dad wasn't really a part of that story, but yeah, I think there was probably a little bit of hold up that I didn't want to do that. So.
What pushed you away from the Catholic Church?
I don't know if there's a natural push, and I would probably say today I have still like fond memories of it. I certainly see clear differences now. You know what I mean? That I don't agree and don't kind of understand. But I don't think, I think as I learned and read more and got mentored in the Bible, obviously being in a Christ following church was like the most important to me. Like I never really had a longing to go back. I felt like, as much as, I don't have any ill feelings, there's a comfort level. I do remember the only transition I would say of not going back. It was like letting go. It was super weird for me to go to just a Protestant church in general, but this was a startup. It was in the basement
of a school.
A basement of a school,
Like,
so it was super small. And now I've seen startups before, and I understand those. And it just felt like, man, this is like a culture shock.
Like, they're having a rock concert.
Yeah,
here. Why?
like,
Why is this church?
Didn't feel like
there's no stained glass windows.
Yeah, it just didn't feel like there should feel holy. I didn't even know what that meant. You know what I mean? But it felt like, man, everybody is in shorts, which I wear a lot of shorts now, and everybody's just casual, and it was really hard. At first, when I first walked in, I probably, as it was for you going to a Catholic church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was, what she felt like. It's the first time when I went there, I felt like, but it was great because she still wanted to go, and I wanted to support that, even though I was not leading at all like I should. Other than that, I think we need to seek God, and let's try it.
And I'll give my perspective on it because I was baptized Catholic, I had a raising Catholic. What I felt and why I felt like it wasn't my calling was the things that they were doing felt more as a task, and there was no love for Jesus and what he's done. It was more of like you're doing things, but you're doing these things and you feel like you fulfilled his plan, but there's so much more that the Bible tells us that we have to do.
For
And I just think there's a lot more to it than that. And that's how I felt. I might be wrong, but we're still all growing and learning in this journey, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But what was the encounter that y'all met? How did y'all meet?
Through a mutual friend.
Mutual friend?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
My girlfriend said, "Oh, I know this guy. Let's go over that." He lived in an apartment with his brothers, so she said, let's go over there and stop by, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was it.
So, was that your start of your journey? Walking through your journey now that you found Christ and that you know that Christ is in your day to day life. What are some changes that started happening, and y'all started noticing that you had to change?
I would say the first big thing, well, I would say it happened right before we were planning to get married anyway, and we got married, and then we had, um, just my parents passing away both within a year, and we had a miscarriage. We had a lot of things that happened right away as we became Christian, and we, were in a church, and we had started a life group, and we had people who were walking those things kind of with us, even though we just had met them, and and then we got pregnant with, after we had a miscarriage, we got pregnant with our daughter. And I think our first big challenge was, as I was getting ready to have her, or as she was born, we were talking about whether or not, for me to stay home. And we sat down, and it was like the first thing, I feel like it was the first thing we ever really prayed about.
Yeah.
And together, I mean, I think we had prayed before, but it was like the first big thing that, like, okay, maybe we should pray about this. And we sat down and we figured out the bills, and we kept saying, well, like, we could not pay this, or we could, like, how could we do this? And no way we could make it work. Zero.
No.
And we just decided, it was like literally our first thing that we just stepped out in faith and felt like God was calling us to do that, for me to stay home. And I'm gonna cry. Sorry, I'm gonna cry. She's 28 years old, and we've never looked back from that. I mean, I've taken some jobs, and I've had odd jobs that I've done to help supplement our income, but I have been able to be home with our kids, and
yeah, I would say, when that happened, that was probably my first real, like, time alone with God, because I felt this pressure of, this is something you really want to do. In my mind, it's like, no way we can do it. But I do remember, and it's been one of those things that I kind of look back, and the two things that were super important, that has, was kind of the foundation of our walk. And like everybody, we've had some struggles, but man, being able to lean back at the beginning and have this request that made to God, like, hey, if you want this to happen, you have to happen. I don't have a great education at all. The job was okay, but there was no career. And it was a step of faith. Like, just, hey, if the worst will happen, it'll be obvious she needs to go back. And it just always worked out. And I think
not always easy. Like, it's
not always easy.
Not always been easy at all.
But there was two parts to that. We did start at the same time we're doing these things out of faith. We were part of a 20-something life group that started. And there was probably a core 5, if I remember right, couples, somewhere around that. And there was, I think, one kid. Am I right? Yeah, one kid when it started. And man, fair to say 10 years with that group, 9 years.
8 or 9 years.
8 or 9 years. And
we're like,
we saw, I can't even do the number of kids, but being able to walk with other people, kind of walking through people's pregnancies, walking through birthdays, walking
Losses.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How do you do that, knowing that you just had that happen before you had your first one, right? You had a miscarriage, and then not only that, you talk about it was your first leap of faith. It sounded like you had to deal with a lot more than that too, because you had your parents pass away.
yeah.
And then how do you overcome that? How did you overcome that? Mind blowing.
Honestly, I can tell you, um, when I look back, sorry, I'm not planning on crying. I would have brought a whole bunch of tissue. When I look back, it's so evident to me that God prompted me on that journey, right? To like, it just like I said, it was that feeling in my soul that like something was missing that I needed. I couldn't have gotten through any of that. I mean, I started to so I had accepted Christ already before my parents both died, and I had gone to a women's retreat, and I remember like writing this like letter to my parents about how I had accepted Christ and how, you know, and both of my parents were encouraging to me. You know, they were both sick, and um, I don't know. It's like it's sometimes kind of a blur, but I just think like God got me through those. You know, my mom died, and then a year later my dad died, and we had a miscarriage. I mean, it was like one thing after another, but it was like we I was going to church. I was constantly being in fed in the word, and I had people around me who were, hey, how can we pray for you, and that fellowship of other believers, and some of them who were way further along in their walk than we were. And the timing is, it's like God's timing is perfect. Like he knew all of those hard things were coming, and so it was kind of like, even though I feel like he had been maybe working on me my whole life, and when I look back at different things, I feel like he had been kind of, hey, hey, come back, come and have this relationship with me. And I had probably just been tuning that out, but it was so strong, leading, right before all of those things started happening.
And those 8 years were like pivotal for us, um, to really cement our faith for things that were going to come up.
I will say though that a lot of it's crazy that you're still continuing your walk, because I know there's a high percentage that most wouldn't, even after losing your parents. But not only that, the miscarriage. I know when my wife had a miscarriage, and the first she's had a couple, but the first one that she had, it tore her into pieces. And she had friends that encountered the same thing, and they turned away from God. And it's just amazing that you pursued Him, and I just don't like God brought you peace somehow, and brought you that love and peace, and some people at home watch and listen, but some don't grasp the idea because they think it's impossible, but they're underestimating our God that we serve.
Yeah, I will say that not by our own doing of like, oh man, we were so smart, we knew what to do. It was God surrounded us in a church that believed in discipleship. It was the first time I've even heard that term. Started being someone older. Kim would have women discipling her. We were in a young group, so a bunch of us meeting, and we did life group, but we did life together. I mean, we really every together. Weekend, and so those things were super important. We didn't even know that not everybody who went to church, we just started, and this was our first experience. When we left that, we probably searched for that for many years after that. We didn't know what we had, but we were able to do those things because of really what it says in the Bible, and just do community together. You know what I mean? Yeah. We broke bread. We cried together. We shared. Everybody helped each other move. That was a big part.
So,
it was that was a big.
You're finding community. It sounds like in this church.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some things that you saw in the church that pushed people away? Because I know you went to different churches. I'm speaking in general.
Our first church that we were incredibly blessed. Like Jay said, that we got into, a life group, really did life with people. Some of our friends who were in that life group had either been Christians a long time or had
Yeah.
grown up Christian. They really helped us know things that we didn't know. So we didn't have that experience. We didn't really see that experience at first, the first 8 or 9 years. After we left that, we went to churches, you know, trying to, as we moved, and we, kept trying to find where is our place. And
We kept trying to find that.
yeah,
I would say as we got older, and you get
So
it,
it's hard to find that. I'm sorry.
yeah, it
yeah.
was hard to
And I
find
would say
that.
if something pushed us away is we had experienced what, I always said this, that I probably would never be friends with them outside of this, but with God in the center of it, like we were more than friends. We were brothers and sisters and created a tough bond. And we would go places and we just couldn't redo that. And I think it's a little harder when you have kids and you're older and you're in your career. We were younger,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And kind of like we,
Circumstances worked out.
yeah,
But I'd say we tried. I mean, I don't know. I went to one church for a little while without Jay, and I was there like 2 or 3 weeks, and they were like, "Well, you have a toddler. You have to teach in the toddler class."
Oh wow.
That was terrible. So terrible. I mean, I was so overwhelmed at where I was at in my parenting, and I was like, and I ran away screaming. And then we found another church. That I just some of it was us, and
yeah,
his job took over for a few years.
yeah,
But also some of it was we went to one church in California, which was really a big church, and you just kind of get lost. There's not any real connectedness. Like you don't even know where to start. Um, and then there was a little bit of that was just us. That was the timing, and again, his job was all consuming at that point in our life. And then when we went to Arizona, again, we found an incredible church and we had a life group and it was good. It wasn't exactly the same. It still just didn't have that same feeling exactly that we had had that first time around, but it was really good.
it was a great church.
We had really neat people there that we really connected with, and yeah, so we've been fortunate that we've had that multiple times, and we haven't had that bad experience.
Yeah.
I do know people who have left the church and who have um, left over different reasons. Church hurt is real, I think, sometimes where people didn't get the support that they needed during a pivotal time. Hey, I was going through a really hard time, and or in my marriage or whatever, and nobody, I even asked for help and didn't receive it. I mean, we have friends who felt that way at different churches, but we've been pretty fortunate.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think we've seen sometimes too. Sometimes when people have been together, it'll feel like it's clicks. You know what I mean? But the reality is, people have been together for a long time, and so sometimes it's hard for new people to come in. But for the most part, we've always kind of tried to find a Bible believing church. And I'm honestly, I really believe because we moved a couple times. I think it's kind of a lot on us to come up and say hi to people when we're in the right space, like, and everything's good. Like, it's easy to build community. When you're not in the right space, and sometimes it's hard for you to be the hey, how's it going? And you're kind of waiting for people. You can get kind of a little sensitive. Oh, nobody said hi. Nobody said this. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah, in that sense, it's helped that we've moved a lot.
Yeah.
Because in anything, like I moved a lot in school, growing up, a lot, and I learned pretty quick that yeah, everybody there's already been going to school together. They all know each other. If I don't walk up and say hi and meet people, I'm probably not going to meet people. So that was a little bit easier for us at church. And I do know some people who are like, I went 3 times and nobody talked to me, and I'm like, did you talk to anybody else either? And so I know that that's a thing, for people. But on that note, we just were talking the other day about how at our current church at First McKinney, that we sit by the same greeter every week, and she knows who's new. She knows who's been there. This lady is just I mean, like the perfect greeter. I like
Yeah.
she makes you feel special every time you see her, and
Yeah.
I think like, oh, I wish that every person who ever walked into church could get to meet this lady.
Yeah.
What does a good church look like to y'all? I know it changes from person to person. So if you had to make a list, what are some top things that you look for in a good church?
I think discipleship, like really teaching people how to follow Christ.
Mhm.
Um, we've seen what it looks like when churches are doing that, and what it looks like maybe when it's not as big a focus.
Yeah.
Um, and again, we've been very fortunate that to have three really good churches in three different states, and we've had a few misses in between, but really urging people to grow in their knowledge of who God is and in their relationship with God. And that's a big one. And then, you know, kind of secondarily or right along with it is encouraging people to have community of other believers, again, like in Acts, to do life with.
Yeah.
And that's been incredibly important for us.
Oh.
Those two things.
Yeah, for me, I think it's certainly Bible believing, reading a lot from the scriptures, um, which I think, as Kim said, discipleship, really learning how to, do life, and really challenging the congregation, to get in the Bible and read. I love that we have a Bible reading plan, and so also too, if the church is doing that, you'll see people wanting to disciple other people. And, at First McKinney, it was, we found that, man, we have been pretty good churches, but, that's checked a lot of the boxes for us. Sam is great. There's a lot of people in the congregation that, have done some one-on-one discipleship with people who have been, um, it's great to have people who want to mentor you, and that comes from the environment of the church. Kind of what the culture is. And so, it's we all go through stages, and I believe a lot in mentoring, and so yeah, just people who not only want to go to church and learn about the Bible, but really look to help someone else out. And disciple people, and so for me, a lot, just kind of the culture around discipleship.
Well, community sounds like that's one of the driving factors for y'all's
For sure.
life, because, and it's been a big part for me in my life as well. Having other people around you that can guide you and help you and be there for you when you need them the most
Yeah.
is amazing. It's a blessing. And I also was church hurt at one point, and I think a lot of people watching may have church hurt in them.
Yeah.
And I know that y'all, you've experienced some of that too. So it's like, but what can you say to them, or what is maybe one thing that you decided to put your thought process on and say it's just this one. It's not like all the rest, because remember, when someone's church hurt, they end up putting all the churches in one category.
Yeah. So I would say, and I know it's a little bit cliche because I know it's been said a lot of times, is churches are filled with sinners, and there are no perfect churches. You will not find one. And the part that's kind of cliche is people say, well, if you go to one bad restaurant, do you stop eating out? No, you don't. If you go to one bad store and you get bad service, do you stop shopping? No, you don't. And I think, um, you know, people cannot look for perfect churches, and they can't expect everybody in those churches to do the right thing all the time. It's because they're um, even though we're saved and we're redeemed sinners, we still are in the flesh. Everybody in a church is still in the flesh in some way, and they're inadvertently going to maybe say the wrong thing. They're going to not maybe respond at the right time for somebody when they really need something.
Hmm.
And I think It's grace. Like people need to have grace, even for churches. In the sense that, um, again, there's no perfect one, um, but it's about, um, you know, Christ and getting closer to Christ, and we're all trying to do it together. And I think people can read their Bible on their own, and they can, I think, even get to know Christ on their own. But we were never called to walk it alone. We really are called to walk it in community. Um, God is a relational God, and not only do we have a relationship with Him, but He wants us to have a relationship here with others too. To iron sharpening iron, and those kind of things of causing growth in ourselves and in other people.
Yeah, I told this on the last podcast. A lot of people, me and Pastor Sam were talking about, back then, maybe 10 years ago, I would have said I would never step foot in this church because of the size, because of the metaphor of this church has all this money. I'm looking at it from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I said that I saw this person tell the story. This lady was focused on how big the church was and how the money was. Well, he's like, well, do me a favor, grab a spoon and put water in it. And walk down the aisle to where this front stage is at in the church, and go do it there and come back, but don't spill any water. Yeah, well, she does that, and she's so excited when she gets back because she's barely spilt any water. And then the craziest part was, like, how focused were you on that? He's like, I was so focused. I was determined. Like, well, guess what? You missed. You missed 10 people get baptized. You missed 4 people that didn't know about God get saved. People were going to commit suicide that night. Like all these things that she just missed, but she was focused on this spoon.
Yeah.
And a lot of us will focus on the size of the church versus the blessings that are in the church that's going on at that moment.
Yeah. Or, I think a lot of people in that same idea focus on, well, I don't love the music. I don't love that. That's not my style of chairs. Whatever it is, right? I think everybody comes in and they have, and I think there are a lot of good churches, and there are a lot of different styles of churches. And I think some, there's places you feel more comfortable in places, like, okay, this is where our whole family fits in. I know people who've gone to different churches because their kid really fits in over here, and they really like it, and that's okay. But I think sometimes people get so caught up in, well, I just don't like this one thing. I don't like this one thing, and I tell people all the time, gosh, there are several things that I love, 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 love about our church in Arizona, and there are things that I love, love, love about this church. And if I could take all the perfect pieces of every place, we could make the perfect church. There isn't a perfect church. There's just not. There's things that, I wish this was a little different. I wish that was a little different. That would be nice. Oh, that would be nice. But at the end of the day, there are, a lot of people there who love the Lord and who can help people, in their walk with the Lord.
I think too, I'd give all people grace on both sides. People who are doing the hurting at church, maybe, or the people going. When you first go, it's hard not to like judge and be a consumer. You know what I mean? Like it's like you're judging like the coffee. Did people are nice? Where did I sit? Was it? Yeah. I didn't really like the message. I feel like, to be quite honest, when I look back and think of some of my conversations, I feel like just like totally embarrassed. You know what I mean? But it is kind of part of the process. You know what I mean? Today, I travel a lot, and it's fun because I pick a church where I go. I look kind of like, and man, I've gone into like churches with like 4 or 5 people, you know what I mean? And some bigger churches, and it's been kind of interesting, but you go on Sunday to worship the Lord. You know what I mean? I think a lot has to do on how you look at church. You know what I mean? When I looked at it as, you know, man, I don't want to say like, I mean, maybe I guess at times like, man, I'm taking my day off. I'm like coming here and like, you know, and now the coffee's hot, not hot enough, you know, and I'm complaining, you know, really, it's just, I probably had most of the problem. You know what I mean? Everything was there to serve me instead of me to serve God. And, you know, I think, reminding, you know, myself, and not to say that sometimes I probably still don't get into that, but I'm glad it's not as much as before, because I just love church. You know what I mean? I just get to a point like, I love our church. You know what I mean? I would say when you're picking a church, looking back, I mean, we had 6 kids. I mean, the youth group was super important to us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
That's probably,
I
that's probably why we ended up at the first beginning.
yeah, I like to say that, you know, sorry, Sam, you know, the pastor's always like the number one reason. And I'm glad this time it has matched up. But this is where the culture of, if the church disciples, it'll disciple the young. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That really was how we ended up at our church in Arizona. And
Man,
it ended up being the most incredible blessing. I mean, their big focus was on discipling the youth. I mean, a big portion of the whole church was on discipling high schoolers.
Yeah.
And
but
that was where our, when we moved there, that we had 3 kids who were in that, and it was huge for us.
But as we got connected, we, you know, some of my best discipling, by people there. That's why the culture is important to me. From the top down, if they believe in discipling, you'll get that throughout the whole church. You know what I mean? I think that's super important, you know, to walk along people and grow. You know what I mean? I think that is huge. But yeah, I would, you know, for church hurt, I think a lot of it, I always look at myself first. You know what I mean?
But I don't want to. I mean, I do know people who have had legitimate hurts.
Yeah.
Inside the church, again, because, you know, there's a lot of humans that go there, unfortunately, and that, you know, that can cause people to get hurt.
Yeah.
And I think there are some real, genuine, like, places where the church has been at fault, and that people have been really hurt and let down and not supported in the way that they should. And I don't want to, because we've been extremely fortunate, I don't want to dismiss the fact that I think that there are really people who have had horrible experiences, and to any of those people, when I've had a chance to talk to them, it just don't give up. Just don't give up, because you know that it's you miss out because of one bad thing on so much good that can come from finding a good church and finding a good community and you know, serving and being spiritually fed and just all that comes with being in a church body. So I don't want to make light of anybody's real hurt, because you know, we do know some people who've really had unfortunate circumstances through church.
Yeah. I'm glad they all see both sides.
Yeah.
Is you're baptized, right? With us?
Yes, this is an actual thing for us. So if Sam's watching, I was baptized in a Presbyterian church, so sprinkled, not dunked. And Jay was baptized in the Catholic church. So we've been talking about we both believe in full submersion baptism. We don't believe it, you know, changes our salvation. But we have talked about taking the plunge and actually getting baptized that way. So
yeah, that's awesome, because y'all can do it together, or y'all can do it the same day.
Awesome. Yeah, we really want to go to Israel and do it there.
Wow. Yeah. I think we're waiting for that.
Yeah. I mean, and it is because I mean, like, again, we were in a Presbyterian church, and I was fully all the same steps as getting baptized. It just doesn't look the same without a baptism, I think.
You were asking what, or were you just asking, or just asking in general?
Yeah. Asking, I mean, if you had one.
I thought you told them that we were debating this.
You don't have to be baptized to be saved.
No.
We all know that here.
Yeah.
You know, and your time will come when
Yeah.
when God tells her. So.
I
Yeah.
think it's been a little bit of a prompting. I mean, we've actually, it's funny, we've now been in Baptist church for like 12 years. I I believe it is an act of obedience too. But because I already followed in that obedience and went and chose to do that as an adult, I've been back and forth about whether or not to like. Do I really like? Is it symbolic? Do I need to do it again? Do I? So.
Hey, we all get it. We'll get that one. God tells you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 5 kids. I mean, come on, 6.
Six.
Wow. I'm sorry, 6. I mean, that must be insane. I don't even know where to start, but you get to see them grow, and obviously, one of the things that drew you to the churches in Arizona and here, it says your kids, right?
Yeah.
So, how was that journey for you as parents? Like,
It's been amazing.
amazing.
To be quite honest, our kids probably ministered just as much back to us to really learn that, because they had very good teaching. I find myself trying to like catch up with them.
Up.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's, because apologetics is something I never heard of, you know what I mean? And they've been exposed to so much good teaching, and there's just so many resources out there that, yeah, it's been fantastic, and in a lot of ways. And I know we're supposed to pour into our kids, and we try to, but it's great to partner up. I'm a huge believer in discipleship, and to me the youth group is a form of that. They're and some groups do it a little bit better than others, not to try to talk bad about anybody, but like they really we've experienced some really great teaching, and our kids have done really well, and in turn it's allowed us to learn from them and dive deeper. But I think it's just encouraging, like as you see them grow, you want to grow, you know what I mean? And as they're like, wow, look at them minister and preach. And
I mean, I feel extremely fortunate that we came to Christ before, and so our kids have been raised in the faith since day one. And but that meant that really by the time they got to high school, they already knew as much as us, the oldest ones. And again, we got into a church that focused heavily on real discipleship for high schoolers, for our older kids, and they were outpacing us. And I think I know for both of us, they were outpacing us, and for sure that caused both of us of like, oh, we need to dig in. Like when our kids are asking us about, you know,
big deep questions. They're researching books.
Big,
you know what I mean?
Philosophical questions, and we were like, I don't know. I read the Bible, but
would you say that was your first sign of like you really seeing them devoting themselves to knowing God?
Oh, for sure. And I think that was really important to us, was making sure that they had a walk that was their own. That they again, I grew up thinking, oh, yeah, I'm a Christian. Like, of course, I know who Jesus is. I wanted to make sure that like my kids got a faith that was their own faith, and that they understood it. And the Bible says always be ready to give a reason for what you believe. Like, it was really important to us that our kids could say what they believed, and that it was theirs and not ours. Wow. And by the grace of God, we were in a church that really fostered that.
But yeah.
I encourage. That was one of the things that me and my wife were kind of discussing a lot of is, what do we do? We're saved.
Yeah.
We got our little girl, and do I put this on her? And I said, well, or we asked the question to ourselves, do we put this on her? Do we pursue it? And I said, we both have bad experiences, and what was our response to it? Obviously, it was negative, and I would hate to pressure her to do something that she's not ready for. And we let her do her own walk, and we knew that God was going to reach her when the time was right. And obviously, He's still touching on working on her, but that's awesome that you say that, because a lot of parents think just because they're Christian, you have to push your kid to do it, and we push our kids to do something so much. they start rebelling, and then they start pushing away from the faith versus towards it.
You know what though? I think I mean we made our kids. I don't know if it was ever even a thing. I don't think they ever felt like we made them go to church.
Yeah.
But um, it was really always been more about relationship. Like because it's not legalistic, and because it's relationship, we introduce them early on to a relationship that we were having. You know, hey, this is our relationship with Jesus. Come and learn about it.
Yeah.
And that allowed them to have a relationship with Jesus.
What was an invite, not a demand?
Yeah,
Right,
for sure.
right. And
For
so when
sure.
you say like, do we want to push that on her? Like, no, 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 don't ever. I mean, that would be my like, don't ever push that on your kids.
Yeah.
Invite them to it. Let them see if it's really a part of your life. Your kids want to be part of your life.
Yeah.
They want to be
They'll
with
share
your friends.
your
They want to
interest.
know do what you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was. That was a good point, and my daughter finally made the decision to just say, like, I want to learn. I want to get that. You know, I want to learn what you're learning, and came to me versus me having to come to
Yeah,
her.
that's
And that was
awesome.
like the best feeling ever. And so I'm. It sounds like God had prepared you for a lot of. But I want to go back on, how you were feeling and going through whenever you had going through the miscarriages, losing your parents.
One, just trying to figure out, I was still in that early stage of trying to figure out life, but um, trying to find hope, and it seemed like one hard thing after another. But sometime in that time, having just become a Christian, and then these things happening, and I read the book of Job, and that was incredibly pivotal for me, just to read God saying, "This is who I am," and Job, you're not me, you're not God, and it was super important in my walk was to learn that, oh, you know what? God is big and he's got it all figured out and I don't have to. Like, in spite of all these things, like he's still, you know, holding it all together. He's still holding it all together. And I think just coming up, like reading that whole thing and realizing, okay, the hope is not in what's happening today. The hope is in God. And God is still good and God is still big and God is still waiting for me at the end of whatever this journey looks like, for the next 30 years or 50 years or, however long. That was like foundational in my journey, in my walk with my relationship with God.
Well, now that y'all have walked in your faith, your kids are walking in faith, what else? What are some struggles that y'all had to encounter as believers, knowing that y'all are leaders in your house, but now in group settings? What are the things that you had to start doing in order to be, continue that leadership role?
Mm.
It's become more than just reading the Bible now, right? There's a lot of
Yeah. I would say that, I guess one of the things that, and let me preface this by starting this, that for the most part, I would classify things were not necessarily easy for me, but I was like super confident at everything I did. And so, kind of, this leadership role of like, hey, as I started to embrace, here's what it is to be a Christian dad and this and that. About, I don't know, 20, about 15 years ago, I was on a plane and I passed out. My mind, it'd be kind of like a near death experience, let's just say. But I kind of just buried that. And and over a course of time, I started creating lots of fear and anxiety. And so, I would say that, kind of, you know, that was probably my first real struggle. Like I would say in front, um, of Kim and the kids of like, man, how do I get over this? And I would start to, kind of even doubt my faith. Like, man, why am I afraid? And it was just the first time I ever got really attacked that way. And so, it probably, built for probably 10 years. And probably when I got here, I think probably, 6, 7 years ago, probably hit its worst. And so,
And then COVID.
yeah,
COVID was sort of a pinnacle.
yeah. And so, it's a longer story, but I mean, it got to a certain point where, for my work, I don't have to fly a lot, but pretty frequently, debating, not doing that, started to affect my driving. And so I really had to, I really had to turn and dive into the Bible, and I really had to lead in a way that, like, is this what I believe? You know what I mean? And I'm not, and again, I can only share kind of my experience. I don't want to, say, hey, you can fix everything, but for me, it was, it was one of the hardest thing I went through, but also one of the best things I went through. You know what I mean? And so, it got me going through the Old Testament. I mean, I kind of, man, for months I laid on, fear not, I'm the Lord your God. And just kind of, I just, really tried to understand why I was so afraid. I would, talk to, God about it, but, I think that I think it helped me in like this one situation. I think it's one of those things that, it's something that, I don't want to say like I've come through it, but like, and it's been years, as I kind of started almost around 2021 to, I would probably say the last time I flew, which was
I'd
about,
say it started in about 2019.
yeah, but I'm saying like where I can kind of today kind of tell you, a long process that, I closed my eyes for the first time. um, on the plane, and man, it was awesome. It was like super cool, and I just thought like God is like so good, and it's not like that. I was I even like try to. Some people who are close who kind of know the situation, kind of talk. I don't even want to say like I'm cured, but like, man, I'm just not afraid to walk with God into tough places anymore. And so, when you talk about, leading's always the hardest when you have a problem. You know what I mean? And so you have to, it's always easy to give advice when, things you're on top and, things are going good. I think the most difficult time to lead is when you're struggling and, you're trying to keep it together. And so, but it was necessary, you know what I mean? In the sense that God taught me a lot, you know what I mean? In the sense of building trust and, man, I can go into a lot, but, I kind of felt like never could relate with people who struggled, anxiety and fear. And it was just wasn't, the first 30 years of my life, I just had no understanding experience. And from that has really opened up a lot of doors to, connect with people, you know what I mean? Be able to relate. So, but yeah, I would say that, when you come up to something difficult, you know what I mean? It's, you got to walk with it with God. You know what I mean? If you're going to like tell everybody, hey, I'm going to pray for you, and, I'm going to, oh, hopefully God bless you, this and that, you know what I mean? When it really, when it's really kind of affecting you, you know what I mean? I had to kind of look at myself and I really dove into the word, really try to study fear, really, kind of wrestle with God, asked him, how's this happening? You know what I mean? And, again, it's a long story, you know what I mean? Cause I think it's, I've been dealing with it, but man, it's been one of the greatest experience, I've had.
It sounds like y'all, it sounds like you would cast a lot of your anxiety and stress and things that you had to work on and get to God.
Yeah.
And, he fixed it through you learning more about the Bible.
Yeah.
Learning that and then giving on that all to him.
Yeah.
You really had to surrender yourself.
It really is, stories like, like God bringing him out of Egypt and giving him manna every day and like tell him, hey, this is exactly how much you get. Don't take any more. The trust it took that every day he's going to feed me. You know what I mean? And I think little things like, just truly, we read so many scriptures in the Bible, but it's not until you're, I don't ever really wish it on anybody, but, when you're really going through really bad times and tough times where all these things, the Bible now like jumps out, like, do you really, really believe that? And it was necessary for me to go through that. It was necessary to walk that. And, I felt like I've drawn closer, and I really just have a lot more grace for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I think more than anything else, I'm like, oh man, like when things are going good, it's like, praise God. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would say, leading, um, when things are wrong, really leaning, on God, and everything that you give advice to your kids. Every time you tell them, like, trust in this, you do it when it really matters in the toughest times.
Talking about going through difficult times, what are your favorite book to go to in the Bible that you tend to go to most often?
Mine is Job
Awesome.
all the time. Yeah. I just always go back and read that part where God says, were you there? Did you do this? No, you weren't. Okay, you're not God. And I go, oh yeah, I'm not God. I don't have to have everything figured out all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when, if you're asking me, difficult times was fear and anxiety. So, really, um, just going back, you know, honestly, through Genesis, Deuteronomy, the first 5 books of the Bible, um, there was so much that he was telling, the Israelites, do not fear, I'm your God. You know what I mean? And there was so much things that they needed to trust everything. You know what I mean? It literally from protection to food, you know what I mean? That he was, uh, discipling them. You know what I mean? There's consequences, you know what I mean? They wandered for 40 years, you know what I mean? But it's just really just this dependency. I'm going to be your God. You know what I mean? And, but it always, there was a couple, be a man, fear not. You know what I mean? Those always hit me really hard. But I would say, in difficult times, just, um, the Old Testament has become, and all of it. And I love Job too. But most of the Old Testament, I would say right now, I am reading a lot of the Gospels, um, and really, really, really enjoyed going into the Gospels, but really kind of, I think in good times. So I'm going to answer in good times. I'm always reading anything about the kingdom. You know what I mean? So
well, for a long time, yours was an Acts.
It would, well, because I think this goes back to kill, what is our role in building the kingdom? You know what I mean? What is our, kind of job? It really just seemed not my will, but God's will. And, really try to understand that. So love reading Acts, love reading the Gospels, love reading,
well, I remember one time when we had marriage and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we were talking about Joe at the ice cream shop. Okay. It was so crazy because I got to hear your perspective, guys, and like we could have talked all night. Like honestly, I felt like we could have. Me and like you and like it was awesome. But I remember like wow, I told my wife that night. I was like, they really know, like they really dive deep. It's awesome because that's when I feel like I learned. For me personally, I learned the most. And I think a lot of people doing that. And I'm in a season right now where I'm doing that right now. Like I used to just read the stories and just get the concept, but now I'm like diving deep of why he did that. Why did that make that decision?
The stuff that.
And one of the ones that I did a study on was Daniel 6. I don't know if you've ever read that one, but like he trusted him enough that he was going to go in this lion's den, trust God enough, and just really, when can people say that I trust God with my life fully enough to be in a lion's den and say, I give it to you. I trust you, God, enough to be facing with an animal that wants to just eat you up. And that's the world basically. I saw it as the lion is the world, and we're in that little circle here, and sometimes we'll cave because our life's in danger. And we want to just say, you know what, I don't trust God enough to save me at this moment.
Mm.
I for me, I always think my life is in danger, it's so much easier than all the little stuff. Like I always think, oh yeah, the lion. Like you want me not to worship God? Oh sure, I can go into the lion's den for that. Right? That's a big one. All the little things that are so like, oh well, that's I don't know. They're just so much harder, so much harder. Of the anxiety of relationships and people and all those kind of things. I think I'm ready for the big stuff, but man, is the little stuff hard sometimes.
Well, yeah, because then we start thinking, oh, it's a little sin. It's a little sin. It's not compared to me doing this big sin that other people do.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't denounce God,
Exactly.
but would
Yeah.
I?
I'm curious, what's your go-to book?
Well, it was Job, but right now, I'm in Galatians right now. We're doing it on Fridays Bible study, but Galatians is one that I'm reading right now that I'm heavy in, and Acts I'm reading as well just to get some more coverage. But Job is probably the best one I think. There was another one, Judah, I believe. It was the first one I read when, obviously, I know my story, but
Yeah.
it was the first one I ever read. It related to me so heavily. Yeah, I will always remember it. And it was the shortest one.
Shortest, yeah.
One of the shortest ones. Yeah. That's why God, it's like you only have a
Yeah.
the time to understand this.
You're really lucky. I started out, the first one was Matthew. I felt like we were in Matthew for 27 years. The first time we went through it felt like it was, like a never ending book.
Yeah.
But I love Matthew now. I've gone through it multiple times now. But it's interesting because I think the New Testament is obviously right. It's all about Jesus, and it's so good, and it gives us all of this foundation. It's what makes me love the Old Testament so much. Yeah. It's like because as a new Christian, I spent a lot of time in the New Testament because that's what you learn mostly in church. And but the more I've read in the New Testament, the more I want to know the Old Testament. It's like you just like, oh, now I want to know all the backstory.
Yeah, it's becoming to the point where like I bought this thing where I'm going to use it as my study lesson where I'm writing facts that are not in the Bible that I have to go do my own research on sometimes to understand the backstory because it's so important. It's like our lives, right? We got to understand how did you get to that point? How did you get to this point? And it's important to know.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, how did y'all get into marriage and rich?
Marriage is hard.
Of course.
And again, that's one of those things I think everybody thinks, oh well, when I get to year 10, it'll be easy. When I get to year 20, it'll be easy. When I get to year 30, it'll be easy.
I want to tell you guys,
not easy. It's not easy. So I tell people all the time. I feel like everybody needs counseling all the time. I feel like everybody needs marriage enrichment all the time. And yeah, I mean, we've just been through some really hard years, and we've been through some really good years, and I mean, and there's been good woven through all the years. But yeah, we just I don't know, we saw it offered and we are like, hey, we should go to that. Like, it's been a while since we've been in like, marriage group or any kind of counseling, and we should probably get back to that because it's hard. And I maybe there are people who just stayed married and it didn't take any effort, but I haven't met any. Everybody I know who's been married for a long time, it takes a lot of work, and I think marriage enrichment is just part of that work. And again, it's just going and getting perspective from other people and learning different tools that maybe you didn't have last week.
When you truly surrender yourself to God and your heart is open, I think that's the best time to get yourself in one of those groups or marriages where you can hear other people's perspective. Because one of the ones that I think you told me and Jay told me a lot of times were like your marriage can be a discipleship for other people.
For sure.
I didn't see it that way at that moment, right? Because I was new in my walk, but I started thinking, oh wow, like how I treat my wife or how I after this marriage can resonate with what I'm doing for God's kingdom, and other people as well will see that.
Yeah. it's my opinion. You know what I mean? And but I think that family is like, you know, the way God created us to spread the gospel through our family. I think marriage, He uses a lot of scriptures, but it's a perfect description of obedience and, headship. And it's difficult for all of us. Doesn't matter where you sit, you know what I mean? And I just think that it is something that we ought to model. And we're always modeling into our kids. We're always modeling to our neighbors. It's something that even non-believers look at. You know what I mean? You model a really good marriage. It's hard not for people to notice because marriage is hard. You know what I mean? You can see the statistics, the divorce rate. So I do think it's a ministry. I do think that it's something that speaks to everybody. And so I think the enemy knows that if he can break up families, he can um, he can do anything to really destroy what God loves.
And I will tell you, it's a really scary thing. You know, we were married 31 years, and I see, as um, it's really scary to like, oh yeah, there's that couple over there. They've been married 35 years and they just got a divorce. There's no safe place to stop working on your
Mhm.
marriage. Yeah, I
The
mean, more and
institution
more, I
was,
hear those stories more and more all the time, and I'm like, yeah, like nope, we need to continually keep working at being better at um, communicating and being on the same page and working at it because I think anybody's immune to.
And I love that you said that because we talked about it earlier when we were eating. It's like some marriages believe when they sign up with this marriage arrangement or they do some type of thing, curricular activity with their spouse, they feel like there's an end goal. And like you said, you can never stop working on
yeah,
your marriage. It could be the marriage of your dreams. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
Yeah,
But there's things that you could work on to better His kingdom and better your marriage and better and
yeah,
from leaders.
yeah,
It's just
yeah. It's interesting. We're called to seek after God's heart. And He put us here in relationships, and our number one is our wives. And the reality is, it's kind of the model. I'm supposed to obviously search after His heart, and as my wife, I'm supposed to search after her heart. She's supposed to search after mine. And it's easy. We're, like the scripture says, we're prone to wander with God. And I think the relationship is a reminder. You know what I mean? To, almost all the hurts come from feeling unloved, unseeked, unwanted. You know what I mean? Or really, it's not even, and it happens like slowly from just kind of not intentionally doing something.
yeah.
And so, like any relationship, it's about intention. And I think it's the same. And it's a model that reminds us it's the same thing with seeking after God. You know what I mean? We were talking at over dinner, like just, man, you right now you're just on that love getting up and reading the Bible every day. You're seeking after God's heart. That's a joy, and it's a whole different feeling when you're doing that. Well, it's the same with our wives, and you know what I mean, and the same with our kids. You know what I mean, our friends. You know what I mean. It's a active relationship, and if you don't work on it, you know what I mean. It's something that,
It's crazy because then you feel like you're fulfilling the duty.
yeah,
And I hate to say it as a duty, but it's like you feel fulfilled. Like
yeah,
there's no other fulfillment that you get, in my opinion, from I could do all these things that make I could be like the richest guy. I just imagine that the fulfillment I'm getting as a leader, as a husband, as a father, as a person that's trying to spread the message,
yeah,
is no better of a feeling.
yeah,
Just.
yeah.
But well, I want to ask you guys, what is some advice that are people that are watching at home right now, and y'all give your own opinion or say one. If they're struggling in their marriage right now, what's some encouragement you can give them or advice you can give them?
I'll go first. I mean, it's my advice I would give if you start the sentence, I'm struggling with, and you fill in the blank.
I literally was hearing. I was literally. Probably what you're gonna say is what I was hearing in my head.
Yeah. Yes. Start with seeking after God. Start asking God, what's your part? Like, really just dive into God. You know what I mean? And get in the Word, like you said, um, and ask Him to guide you.
You know anything else?
Yeah, I literally was just gonna say, like, I was hearing Jay's thing is like no matter what the struggle is. What I was saying is really Jay has been leading um, over just some different things lately. Kind of the answer comes back to it's the same answer all the time is draw closer to the Lord, right? Like his anxiety, my anxiety, um, our struggle with between us because of probably both of our anxiety in our marriage is when he's walking closely with the Lord. He's calmer. He has more grace. He has more understanding, um, slower to anger, and you know, quick to forgive, and just filled with grace. And when I draw closer, I can have those same things too. And I think so that's certainly the first one. And then the second one is um, a good marriage doesn't just happen. It just doesn't. I mean, I don't think. Um, I mean, maybe I just haven't met anybody yet. There might be somebody that's just super easy all the time, but unless you know, I mean, unless they're not married to a human being, I don't know how that's possible. So I would say just keep putting in the work. Go find if what you're doing now is not working, go find a different you know, find a marriage group, find a counselor, find some good friends, um, find a book, keep putting in the work.
The other thing I would say is always surround yourself around people who are good at what you're trying to get better at. And I don't care what that is, but um, yeah, I think that's a gigantic one. I mean, uh, we seek after God because He is all knowing, and we know that answer. And I think a secondary part, there are other people who have walked this and are walking now this well. So I always surround yourself around people who are better at something than you are.
Wow, yeah, that's a good point. And so there's people out there right now that their fathers out there right now. I'll start with you that are struggling to be that leader. What is some advice, maybe, or maybe it might be repetitive answer, but maybe some things they can do to better be the leader in their house and have their kids and be that father that the kids need.
Mm. Yeah, I'm going to come back to the same answer. Start with seeking after God's heart. Get a good Bible plan. Get someone that you can um, mentor with, or just even kind of talk with. You know what I mean? To open up. I don't think guys do a good enough job um, to 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 open up and talk to things. There's some things that it's super effective to talk to my wife. There's some things that, me and you wrestling through that we can talk as guys and just maybe even vent sometimes about my relationship as someone that'll bring me back to Christ and encourage me. Having those people and having that scheduled. We were talking earlier over dinner, I meet with, two guys probably for the last couple of years. And before that I had a mentor, but just make yourself available to be taught. You know what I mean? To have, deep, meaningful relationships, people who are like-minded. So that would be really one encouragement, get a good Bible reading plan and really try to just learn and go slow. And then, have some people that you can kind of talk with, you know what I mean? And really share your struggles and encouragement with.
What about mothers out there that are struggling with mother being there for their kids?
Yeah. But really, it's pretty much the same answer as Jay. Is I will tell you, there was a long time in the first part of my walk with Christ and with being a mother when people used to tell me, "Oh, have quiet time in the morning, start your day with God." And I would say, I have these little kids. It doesn't matter when I wake up, they wake up at the same time. It's really hard to find time. Um, and I mean, I was still doing Bible studies and things during that time, but I didn't have quiet time. Like, I didn't have time set apart with the Lord. I still struggle with it because when you don't when you don't form a habit, right? It's hard to stick with that. Um, so I would say, that would be the first thing is like, if, make it a priority, like make God first, um, fill up your buckets with the Lord so that you can pour out to your kids. And I mean, I still struggle with it, like I said, but I know when I do that, it works. Mm-hmm. So I would tell, somebody who's struggling as a young parent, especially, like, okay, do that. Start with that above all else. You know, make the kids sit there at your feet while you have your quiet time if you need to, and start with the Lord. And then the other thing is a lot like what Jay said is, we are better with other people. Mm-hmm. So if you're, struggling, join a mom's group at church, find a mentor, find somebody who's, ahead of you in parenting. I have had the privilege to have some really incredibly godly friends walk me through parenting, both along with me at the same time, and people who are ahead of me. And that was, I wouldn't be sitting here today, and my kids wouldn't be where they are today without some of the women that have come along with them.
Yeah, for sure.
You got people that are struggling in their faith right now. They're believers. They go to their churches. They do everything that they're supposed to do. If there's any advice you can give them that can get them there spiritually more, what is something you can tell them?
Well,
because we can do the list, right?
Yeah, for sure.
List.
Yeah.
But then, it's the checklist that you're checking off. But are you doing things that really touch your heart and open your heart more?
It's a really hard thing. Sometimes I think there are dry seasons. There are dry seasons in our walk with the Lord. I mean, kind of like in any relationship, right? Where, oh man, I'm just not as close to this person as I was, you know, last month, or whatever. I mean, I think there's dry seasons in every relationship, and I think sometimes obedience is just keep drawing close to God, even when it doesn't feel like you're getting there, because I think, like, you can't get there if you don't do it. But the other thing is I would just say, um, really just surrender. The times when I am not feeling as close to God, or when I feel like it's a dry spell, it's usually because I'm holding on to something, in one way or another. Relationally, I'm holding on to something. Something else is got my, has got part of my attention more than over here. And I just think, surrendering to the Lord and really just crying out. It doesn't ever have to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And I think if you go to Him and say, God, I'm not feeling you. I'm not. I don't know why, but I'm reading and it's not. Nothing is there. I think even that, like having those raw, honest relationships with God, conversations with God, rather. Um, that's how you build relationship. Like we don't have to ever say the perfect thing. We don't ever have to, okay, I read X number of verses, so I did the right thing today. Mm-hmm. It's about, just surrendering and being still and listening, if for what He has back for us. Yeah. And sometimes you have to sit quietly for a while to hear that.
Oh yeah. it's interesting that you bring this one word up, and uh, I ask everybody when I'm out sharing the gospel. We knock on doors. Me and Braxton started going to college campuses now. And we're spreading the message. But there's two things that I tell them that needs to be done. You gotta believe, and then you have to surrender. But I always ask them, what is surrender to you? And the crazy answers that I get are, you would think it's very simple, but my question to you is, what is surrender to you?
For me,
Yeah.
and this is probably, like you said, it could be kind of different for everybody.
Correct.
For me, it's control.
Mm.
And I think I know a lot of women that it's control. We have to, you know, make our homes a certain way. We have to make sure our kids present a certain way, or that they get to a certain way.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that our marriage is a certain way. We want to make sure that everything. Like there's this constant, you know, we have all these things that we need to be in control of, and I think surrendering control completely. Okay, God, you know what? If it's not going to look like that, if it's not going to be okay, if my health is not going to be okay, if my marriage is not going to be okay, I give it all to you. All right, whatever it's going to be, I lay it at your feet. Um, that is incredibly hard to do, and sometimes I have to do it, 100 times in a day or 1,000 times in a day, and sometimes I forget, and that's when I have anxiety. And and I like right now, I'm not feeling anxiety. It's really easy for me to say that, Rocky. It's really, really easy. But there are days when, I can't even tell you exactly what I'm holding on to control of, but I can tell you by how tightly my whole body is holding on, but I'm holding on control of something. And then there are other days where I'm just like, okay, God, I give it all to you, and it is all going to be okay. And um, you, I trust you. I trust you. And I think that's that'd be my one like advice is just really stop and think, what are you holding on to that, or you're saying I don't trust God with that. And
Because we can pick and choose, right? Sometimes.
we do.
Yeah.
We do. Like I said, for me, right, the lion's den, no problem. The phone call I got to make to somebody difficult in my life tomorrow, that one's a problem. It's different for everybody.
What about you, Jay? Because I mean, I know as a man, giving up control is something that also we have the hardest thing to do. And I know you have a men's Bible study as well, and you really focus on that. We need to bring more men to learn more about the Bible. But what does surrender to you look like?
Not my will, but His will. And I feel like it's building kingdom. I feel like, when I go through my dry spells, I'm really kind of doing me first.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Right now it's a simple verse, I guess, as different times in my life, but seek the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all things will be done for you. I think it's like that first part of seek the kingdom of God and His righteousness is like is super profound to me, in the sense of what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, and if you read before and after that, it's what we're supposed to, what we're supposed to be doing. But I've really just tried to like hone in on that, and really, I get up. What does He want from me today? How do we build the kingdom? You know what I mean? And I think there's a combination when I, like, if I was, in control, no, but really in the sense of like, it takes, learning, going out, talking to people. You were talking about going out to colleges. It's, I don't know about you, but I find myself, when you're doing His will, you're excited. Like, you know what I mean? It's a fulfillment. Like, um, it's, at first it's scary to go up and talk to people. It's scary at first. It's easier now. You know what I mean? As you're a little bit more comfortable. because you're doing something for a bigger purpose. Right. What your calling is. Our calling is to, um, is to go spread the gospel, the good news, and let people know and grow the kingdom. And I think that surrendering to me, just what are my wants, like really dying to the things that used to be so important to me, man. I used to love sports, watch sports all the time. I still enjoy it, you know what I mean? But all my time, when you were talking earlier, and I was just kind of thinking about your question, about advice, when you're going to, like, your time is the most valuable asset you have. It's not your money. It's not, you know, um, it's not anything. Your time it's limited, and you choose what you do every day you wake up. You can scroll, you can read the Bible, you can do community with someone, but you're going to look back at the end of the night. You're going to look back at your real life, and and we all are going to give an account for what we did. You know what I mean? And I think being able to get up and seek, the kingdom of God every morning. You're asking him, what's today? And, I don't think it's like magical, like you're going to go out and go do all these things. It's just really, it might be like, hey, it's just us today, or just that. You know what I mean? You don't really know what that is, but it's not your expectation anymore. It's really his expectation. So I would say, surrendering is really just analyzing your own time, and, what are you doing for him when he asks, hey, what'd you do today? I mean, not like at the end of your life when you're sitting and like, what'd you do today? You know what I mean? And I don't think it has to be that profound. Other than, it could be, I rested in you. I learned something new. You know what I mean? Where'd you see God work today? So I think is really trying to, every day, what I mean? How do you see, can you trying to just get a glimpse of how, God's working? And sometimes it's great just to watch other people do it. You know what I mean? Um, if you're supposed to participate, don't be afraid to. I remember, I think we were talking that one time we were talking about Job. I think, didn't we go out to want to talk to that street guy who was preaching? Yes. I was like, oh, but I remember, and, Kim will tell you, like, I love people out there talking, or even if it's Muslims or Mormons or someone else, I just love talking about.
They were attacking a point from hate. Well, I don't want to say hate.
Yeah.
Anger, I'd say.
Yeah.
More or less,
yeah.
But, I think you're cool enough. Like, we were coming from a place of love. Like, it's still fun. Because I could talk with people like that.
Yeah.
I love that. So
yeah.
I agree with you. We wanted to. I know me.
Yeah.
And you were backing me out. Yeah. Man, this was great, guys. I really loved having you on. And, I was wanting to do y'all separately, but I'm so happy y'all did. And if there was one final message for someone that's watching that is a non-believer, and I know y'all get a ton of advice and a ton of things that people can do, but if there was one final message, it was the be-all message that you had to give. What could you tell the people watching right now if they're struggling in their faith right now? Or they're non-believers, I'm sorry, and they don't believe that God exists. What can you tell
them?
I mean, I don't, I would say really investigate. Like, there's not a more important decision you'll ever make, and just seek after truth. I think all of us, want to know what the truth is. But I think in our deepest soul, when you're quiet at night, you know there's a God, and I think that you should, find out who that is. You know what I mean? And obviously, I think the evidence points to Jesus. I believe that he died on the cross. I believe that he rose on the third day, for our sins. But I would just tell anybody, go out and search yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? And prove it it's wrong.
Exactly.
Prove it it's wrong. You know what I mean?
And that would be, a whole other podcast. But
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, when I first started seeking, one of the things, I wanted evidence. I read, Josh McDowell's Evidence That Demands a Verdict, and I wanted, like, okay, show me somewhere that, besides just these people in church said it's so. I want to know, like, I want the, archaeological evidence. I want all of that. Well, it's there. Yeah. I mean, it is there, and I would add. I mean, I think I totally agree with what you said, and what I would say is, God loves you. Jesus loves you. Yeah. He is real. He wants desperately to have a relationship with you. and yeah, just seek Him.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for opening your home to us.
Oh man,
I really
it's
appreciate
awesome.
it. Thank you, and I hope that we can continue this growth together. And y'all just amazing.
Yeah, thank you for having us, man. It's
Yeah,
been super
appreciate
cool.
you guys having me here.
All right, guys, this is T Square Testimonies. Keep showing us support. And I know there's some ways that y'all can get in contact if y'all have any questions or advice from them. I will gladly put that out on the description below. Keep showing love and support, guys, and subscribe. And we're out, guys. Peace.